their priesthood, that would be like in 5,000 years from now, someone says, I am channeling the Republicans, or I am channeling, the Minister of Defense, I'm getting messages. Same thing. If the ancient Hebrews were here, they'd be rolling on the floor laughing about the whole thing. Okay. And so, we have to speed things up a little bit, because they're going to get the hook. Break? I don't need a break. Do you need a break? Or do you need a break? Otherwise, we'll never get done. All right? And so, you have to shut me up, otherwise I won't shut up. And so, be careful about what you believe in, because most of it is not what you think it is. And in a couple of years from now, you're going to look very foolish. They're going to implement 1 year from now a new world religion. In fact, the last time I was, a couple of times ago in Chicago, I received a pamphlet. Oh no, actually this was on the East Coast. I saw a pamphlet from the Theosophical Society, which is based around here. And the Theosophical Society, which is connected to the UN, has a big pamphlet now that says, prepare for the new world religion. They're handing that out now at their organization. That will include a god and a goddess. They will actually have a new Christ figure, which they will call Emmanuel. And who do you think the female figure or the female icon will be? Diana. That's why she has been set up as a goddess, complete with glass coffin and private island for viewing.
So we're back to a polytheistic religion again.
Yes and no. Let me get to that. In fact, just a few months ago, a woman released a book that she channeled, and she channeled Diana. The second that she died, Diana went to this woman and started talking to her. And Diana told her that in a past life, she was the grandmother of Jesus, making her right away the Holy Mother of the Earth. So, there you go. She's already set up as the Holy Mother with Emmanuel. And very shortly, if not imminently, people will start seeing images of Diana appear to them, along with the Madonna. Because they're really going to be mother and daughter, aren't they? And so, that's already started happening. Now, people have said, well, if Christ comes back, how are you going to prove it, that it's him? There's already Baptist groups and charismatic Christians who are claiming or demanding that now that cloning is available, they want to clone Christ. And the newspapers have accommodated this, by the way. And they said, you know what? We figured out that if Christ was cloned based on the genetics of that time, he's not going to look like what you think he's going to look like. And in the newspaper, they actually sent a picture. They said, this is what Jesus is going to look like. This was in newspapers on the East Coast. I don't know if they were, and the West Coast. I don't know if they were here.
That's on a documentary.
Yeah, that was a documentary. And so they're showing you already what the clone person is going to be like. They're telling you, this is him. See? Computer generated. Well, here's the next thing. Here's the next thing. How will they prove that it's him? What's the big buzzword that people use now? DNA, right? Prove it. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. We already know it. Shroud of Turin. Ah, but wait a second. For decades, they said the Shroud of Turin was a hoax. It was done in the Middle Ages, right? However, the technology to do it then didn't exist. Then all of a sudden, in the midst of all that hubbub, the Church of Turin had a fire, and the shroud mysteriously disappeared. Where did it turn up 2 years later? Jerusalem. And who had it but Israeli scientists? And what did they say? They said they examined the Shroud of Turin, and in it they found pollen samples that were at least 2,000 years old and could only have come from the Middle East of that time, thereby verifying the authenticity of the Shroud of Turin, including the bloodstains on it. So if you take the bloodstains and you match that DNA to this guy, they're going to be a match. So what will the public say when this person's genetics is identical to the Shroud of Turin? What will people say? It's God. It's Jesus. And what's Jesus going to say? That the New World Order is my new holy empire. And Diana, my grandmother, is the mother of the world. And who's going to say no? And what happens if you do say no? Well, what happened last week? What did they do last week for the first time, which I warned you about 3 years ago? And everybody laughed at me. What did they do in Florida last Friday? A week ago today. You do read newspapers in Winfield, don't you? They implanted the first human beings, at least officially, with chips, microchips. The first human beings, supposedly, but we know that's been going on for a long time. And now, what did Condoleezza Rice say? Well, she said, if you're at the airport security and you're in this long line for 2 hours, and then right next to you, you see someone walking by with their arm like this to a machine and then just keep going, what line are you going to want to be on? That's what she said.
The iPass
Yeah,
line.
just stick it in there, and you don't even need your passport, you don't need your wallet, nothing. Just stick your arm.
Just like they can with the iPad.
Yep.
So you went through this toll, that toll.
And then it's going to come to a point where if you don't get that, what are you hiding? What did Bush say? Either you're with me or you're against me. You cannot think for yourself. You can only do what I tell you, otherwise you're a terrorist. So if you don't get that, what are you hiding? That's coming next. They've already in New York City decided to implant newborn infants with it because they've been having kidnappings from the hospital. So what mother wouldn't want a LoJack in her baby? What kind of a mother are you that you'd let your kid out like that without a chip?
Well, didn't that technology start for dogs, lost dogs?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And imprinting into your mind that this is necessity and requirement. Remember how they operate. Create the situation and then provide the solution that you want, only make the public think they wanted it.
Give me your freedom, I'll give you security.
Exactly. And isn't that what they said a week after September 11th?
Yes.
Isn't that when they interviewed everybody on CNN in the streets, wouldn't you give up the Constitution and the Bill of Rights for security? Absolutely. They couldn't say yes fast enough. And what have they said on television recently? Because people started questioning the legality of this. On television they said the Bill of Rights and the Constitution are documents that are signed. All signed documents are legal documents. All legal documents are subject to negotiation. That's what they said. So, means there is no negotiation. Okay? Because then you're either with me or you're against me. Now, they just admitted to you that they knew about the terrorist attacks before it happened. What they don't show you is on French television, they're saying that the President of the United States and the government set the whole thing up, and that they're all lying. Of course, what happened to some of the people who believed in that in the French elections recently? They're out. And so, leads me to the next important point, and that is what happened on September 11th. What was that all about? Now, I must say that President Bush deserves an Emmy Award because he really played it well. Complete with the tears and the nervousness and all that stuff. Of course, he doesn't really have to go too far to act. You know, they did ask him a few weeks ago what his favorite book was. Did you hear about that? They asked him what his favorite book was ever. He said, oh, when he was a little boy, his favorite book was The Hunger